Let's talk about the hustle because somewhere along the way, the event industry made us believe that being fully booked was success. But here's the truth. You can be fully booked and still be broke. You can have a packed calendar and still not be making profit. And the worst part, you can be on the road to burnout. I remember earlier in starting my journey as an event planner, feeling as if the fuller my schedule is, it means the more money that we're making. In reality, that was not the case. We were making more money, but it was costing us a lot more to actually execute it. And so our bottom line wasn't actually increasing. And that's why it's super important to build a business that is sustainable by understanding what it actually takes to know your numbers and to make the profit that you're really wanting inside of your business. But once I realized that by adding more people into the team, that would not fix the problem, and capacity wasn't the issue. It was actually getting out of just hustling and creating a business that I could love and have the structure that's needed to not feel as if I was going to burn out. Because I remember the days of just feeling anxious all the time, not being able to relax, because I was so nervous that something was going to go wrong or I forgot something. And that is not a great feeling. In the beginning, it can feel pretty exhilarating, but once you realize, like, I can't do this long term with feeling this way, you realize like something has to change. There's always been this underlining conversation about hustle hard, but I don't feel as if there's a very transparent conversation about this hustle culture. So let's really go over some of the myths around hustling. When you're hustling, you're just working super hard. And what happens is that we assume that the results will equal profit. And that is far from the truth. You can have results, but if you don't actually know the numbers inside of your business, you will not be profitable. As I mentioned, it's been times where I've looked at hiring new team members, but if I have to now cover someone paying someone $50 or $60,000 a year, or even if it's just on a contracted needed basis, I need to know how many bookings or what profit I need to be able to make inside of my business so that it equates correctly. Because I remember when I hired my first person, I had the money there, but the reality was it was like, hold on, it's not just having the money to cover that salary, it's to have the money to cover that salary plus making the profit that you were making without that person. And that's the biggest disconnect sometimes people have when it comes to scaling. And don't get me wrong, I totally understand how it can collide together. We associate progress in bookings and having a fuller calendar as having success and having more money. But I'm sure you have probably felt yourself in a position where you look at your bank account and you're like, all this money is coming in, but where is it going? And that whenever you feel that way, that is a really good indicator that something needs to change. Also, on the other side of the coin, some of you may not want to have to do 15, 20, 30, 40 bookings a month. I know that sometimes with balloon artists and rentals and things like that, there can be a high quantity that's getting booked. It is not required for you to have a quantity-based business. Some people price for a quality type of service, so they are able to charge at a premium price. I think that that is something important for people to know is that if you're chasing quantity and you're getting a lot of bookings, but the profit isn't there, sometimes what's happening is that you're charging too low. So now you're having to keep producing just so that you're able to make the money you truly are wanting inside of your business. And sometimes the ease of getting the bookings can be a direct correlation to you not pricing well. That's why you can find yourself assuming I'm getting more bookings. That means that we're growing, we're scaling. But once you start to really look at the numbers, you realize that all you're doing is hustling and you are going to burn yourself. I want to share with you, how can you know if you are in this hustle or trapped in a hustle mode? The first thing is that you have no days off. In fact, even on the weekends or in the middle of the night, you feel as if you still have to have your mind going. So you're always going. And even if you have a day off, you're still in the middle of everything because there's no structure. Another thing is that you have scattered systems. So what happens is you have notes everywhere, you're using multiple platforms, and you just really feel anxious because nothing is communicating. So what happens is it takes more time to actually monitor what's going on inside of your business. And because there's not any systems or structure, you will find yourself in this feast or famine structure. When I mean feast or famine, it means you have moments where there's just a whole bunch of leads coming in. You're having to focus so much on those leads because you're just hustling to get them, but you're not being able to consistently follow through with everything that's coming on. So we'll work with all the clients we have right now, but once we offboard all those clients, now we have to go and look for some new ones instead of having a clear structure that will help you nurture all of the leads that are coming into your workflow, regardless if you're busy or not. And that is so important because I can tell as someone that books people when individuals are super busy, they're not they're not checking for anything. They're barely responding. You just kind of have to get in when you can fit in. But as soon as things slow down for them, now they're like, "Hey, what's going on? When can I work with you again?" And it's just like the only reason why you're trying to reach out to me now is because you weren't looking to nurture me when I was actively excited to work with you. So it's important to know, yes, in the event industry, there's going to be ebbs and flows. There are going to be some seasons where you know you're going to get more bookings and other seasons that are not. But the biggest part about it is not waiting until you have no bookings to actually start to curate bookings. The biggest part is being able to have the structure necessary. So if it knows that, okay, this season is going to be a slower season, what can I do to already have the awareness that's necessary so that people are already coming into my sales funnel so that I don't have to so you don't feel the pressure to either give out some deducted services or discounted services, or you don't find yourself in this woe is me. I did find a really great statistic that was saying that according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in 2024, 61% of small business owners reported burnout as the biggest barrier for growth. And it is really one of the huge barriers that people do find themselves challenged in. I've personally have had it where caterers have passed out prepping for events because they're just grinding, which is scary because you trying to reach out to them and they're prepping for an event and then they're not there to find out they're in the ER or they got rushed to the ER due to these things. So this is why it's important to take care of yourself. I've seen it where balloon businesses, because the owner wasn't taking care of themselves, that they had to turn away some bookings because now they're hospitalized and they are apologizing for this happening. But the thing about it is that when we don't have structure, burnout will happen. And it's not just burnout laid out on the floor, it can be burnout laid up in the hospital. And I don't want that for you. And the biggest way you avoid this is just refining what you're doing and adding some structure to it. Because when you're hustling, you're just going, and things are falling through the cracks. Chances are you're having some mistakes occur. And when you have the ability to have something that's assisting you, like a CRM or a team that is using a CRM, it allows for you to actually enjoy the success of the business that you are building. And so when you do take the time to create this structure, you'll be able to have more sustainable revenue, more freedom, and peace of mind inside of your business. And that is ultimately what I desire for a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast right now. Because the thing is that some of you may have built your business so that it just was another job or income, which is fine. Where some of you, you're building your business because you want to be a CEO. And by having an LLC, that is not the only part of being a CEO. It comes down to you actually running your business like a business, not like some hustle. So it's important to shift. And it's not to say when you're going to shift, but at some point, like you feel this shift of you, like, I can't keep working this way. I remember when people were reaching out to me at crazy hours or they were texting me stuff, and I was like, no, this isn't going to work. Like when I first started my event business, granted, some of the vision has shifted. I was like, I want to be in 10 different cities. metropolitan cities across the United States, and maybe down the road it'll be international. How am I going to build that if people are text messaging me orders? Like, that is not sustainable. So I don't want to start something that I will not be able to continue. So that's why it's like something shifts, like, okay, this isn't going to work doing it the way that I'm doing it. So something has to change. You'll know that it's time to make a difference. So as I mentioned, I knew it was time to make a difference when I knew that I needed to streamline what we were doing, because I realized, how can I pay someone to work with me when there's disorder? Like, I knew that every dollar that I'm going to pay someone to help me with supporting the business growth, I did not want it to waste because I was disorganized and I trained someone else to be equally as disorganized. So it's important to start thinking about, how do you streamline what you're doing? So the way that you kind of go about tackling this is, first, just take the time to be clear about what you're doing. I know you'll be like, Jesse, I do it all. I do it all. I get that. But write down clearly, like, what are the tasks that you're doing on a daily basis. And then what I want for you to then do is identify the top 3 tasks that you repeat daily. This is key, because when you're trying to hire someone, you need to know what they're going to be doing. The other part about it is that when you're doing things, you want to know or identify things that you could be doing better and more efficiently. So this is why we want to identify, what are the top 3 tasks that we're doing on a repeated basis. Another thing that I want to recommend for you to do is start to look at checklists or SOPs with what you're doing. It really makes it easier to be repeatable in the tasks that you do. I remember the days of having to get my totes together. And I remember times when I wasn't organized, I get to the event with the totes and I'm like, hold on, I don't have this. Oh my goodness, I'm low on this. Now I got to go run here, or I got to Instacart that. Like, it was chaotic. And I'm sure this might resonate with some of you. Instead of doing that, I had to realize it's time to get a checklist. So when I'm packing my totes for specific events, I knew what needed to be in there, so that my displays were always the same. My team members knew what to expect. And the reason why you do these checklists, yes, you might be a one-man show right now, a one-woman show right now, but at some point you're going to have maybe someone working with you as a friend or a family member, or you might hire someone full time or part time to work with you. They need to know what you need them to do. So this is why you want to think about, how do you start to implement having checklists or SOPs? And checklists and SOPs are really easy to create in the beginning. They don't need to be complicated. Don't overthink anything that I'm talking about right now, because yes, it can, like, woosah if you're feeling overwhelmed. Take bite-sized pieces. Listen to what I'm sharing. Like, look at your life inside of your business right now and think to yourself, where am I having the biggest pain? Then apply these steps. Okay, if it's with you executing your events, what are the top 3 things you're doing when you're getting ready to execute an event? Okay, if I'm doing these things, what can I add as a checklist or SOP so it can be a little bit more smoother? When have you had challenges? Use those challenges as things you can do better inside of your business. And then look at what types of tools you can do to help you with doing it more easily. I use HoneyBook, but again, I am going to always tell people, I don't always care about what system you're using, but you need to use one, because your time is valuable. The amount of time that's lost when we're doing everything manually in our business, and the amount of data you're losing, like that alone, to not be able to visually know what your conversion rate is, to visually not know when you have your highest months and your lowest months in conversion, or leads that are coming in, or understanding where your leads are coming in from, like, and having the ability to pull up a report to do that, or to be able to have the ability to pull up a report on what businesses worked with you the previous year or the previous quarter. If you can't do that in like a minute, then it's time to start using a system. And by implementing these activities and actions and using the right system, you'll be able to save so much time with completing things. I typically can complete my to-do list for my business on the administrative side in the morning within 30 minutes to an hour. Like, and the rest of the day is either pitching or doing content creation for this consulting side of my life, or executing some sales calls and things like that. But could you imagine you being able to go through all of your bookings and knowing what needs to happen and getting all that done in 30 to 45 minutes. And then you go on into the creative side, because I know that y'all love to do the creative side, but we also have to make time to do the administrative side. So the biggest lesson you have to remember when it comes to streamlining is that you truly cannot scale chaos. If you try to do it, it's going to feel like you're filling up a bucket with a gigantic hole at the bottom, because everything's just going to be falling through and you're going to be frantically trying to keep the water in. So, this is why you need to be able to have a system and structure so that you can scale, and taking bite sized pieces to think about the processes that you're using so that you're able to have a clear flow before you even get to the next level. Because the biggest thing about systems and structure is that each new level you're going to go through, your process is going to adjust. But if you don't have a starting point, it's very hard to keep making strategic changes. So once you do make the time to think about how do you streamline or what you will streamline, now it's time to actually think about how you can use automation. I always tell people when they come to me to work with me on their system, the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to automations or CRMs is that they have no clarity. And then people get frustrated and say, oh, the system doesn't work. And I'm like, you can't put confusion into a computer system and expect for it to all work its way out. A computer will only do what you tell it to do. So you have to first do the first step. Think about what you need to streamline and what needs to then happen. Then you identify the tool. But we don't just identify a tool without knowing what the actual problem is, because it just doesn't work that way. So you want to think to yourself, all right, I wrote down that these are the tasks that I'm finding myself doing repeatedly. I have some that I can just do checklists and it solves that problem. But then I also have some administrative tasks that I'm doing repetitively that is related to communication and administrative tasks. What are those tasks and what platforms am I going to be using to be able to do this? So thinking to yourself, okay, what's one of the first tasks I want to tackle? Because you got to start small. So if you're someone that's listening and you're like, the biggest hole I have right now in my repetitive tasks is comes down to just when people are inquiring about my services. It might be that people are sending you DMs and you're like, they're sitting in your DM, and then now you're trying to have a whole text message sales conversation on DM, which you should not be doing. But I know that there's probably some offenders that are listening to this that are having a whole text message DM instead of you having a CRM that you're using that you can easily copy your inquiry form and paste it in there saying, thanks for reaching out. I would love to be able to have a time that we can talk further. Please complete this inquiry form so that you can get a little bit more information and schedule that time to talk. You can have auto response message that goes to people whenever you get a new message in your inbox, whichever works best for you. So start small. Think about what's the biggest hole that you're having right now. Think about what's happening inside of your inquiry process. Think about how you're onboarding people. Do you have a welcome email that should be going, but it doesn't go all the time because it might be manual? Challenge in is because we're not using a system that allows for payment reminders. So can we have automation with our payment reminders? Or one of the biggest things, having feedback going back on your feedback request. So your feedback questionnaire. So can I automate that? So I know what are the things I did well and what are the things I can be doing better. The least allows for you to focus something on a smaller standpoint instead of thinking about, oh my gosh, all these things are going on in my business. And then I look at, okay, this is my client behavior. This is what I need to communicate during this time period. Okay, do I need to have this email? Do I need to have this questionnaire? When should it be going? They find that they're spending 15% less hours weekly because their business is allowing for the automation to support them. And what could you do with an extra 15 hours of free time to do the fun creative side? Because I would imagine that the fun creative side is probably what you like more than having to follow up on emails and people signing contracts. So the biggest thing is thinking to yourself, once I set up these automated reminders and the client touch points, you'll find that you no longer are having to chase down invoices. You're finding yourself no longer having to remember, did I send this email? You don't have to manually process things. And it really will allow for you to have the time to, one, get excited about the growth that's happening. Two, create a strategy for your business. And three, just give you free time so you can do whatever you want to do. So the biggest thing to remember about this is that automation is about consistency. It's not about replacing you. It's allowing you to show up powerfully for each client, not only select few. So it ensures each client has the same experience, regardless if you're busy or if you're slow. So take the time to really think to yourself, if I have a set specific amount of things that need to be executed, how do I go about ensuring that things are happening seamlessly for my customers? Which leads perfectly into the third step is to look for ways that you can now delegate. One of the biggest complaints that I hear from people that I've done consultations with or that I've done build outs for is, when do I know I need to hire someone and what would they do? This is why the first step is to actually think about what are the tasks that you're doing and what are some ways you can streamline it. But if you're not clear about what needs to happen, it's hard to tell someone else what to do. So many event planners really find delegation could be one of the biggest hurdles they have, is because we feel as if, one, I'm the only one that can do it well, which is a lie, unless you intentionally are not looking for people that are equally as great as you. They don't have to be you, but they do a great service, or you just don't have clarity on what you need help with. It's important to strengthen your skills when it comes to delegation before you hire someone, and most importantly, before you burn out, because it's very hard to bring someone on when things are chaotic. Because one, it scares people. Like, let's be honest. Could you imagine someone hires you and is like throwing them into the fire and like, what, you're figuring it out, I'm figuring out? It's chaotic. Like, it- you're going to have a high turnover. And then two, it's hard to teach someone when there's nothing to actually allow for them to replicate what you're doing. So an unclear system with a new person is not the business. So you have to think to yourself, okay, if I was to delegate something for someone to support me with, what exactly do I need them to help me with? Is it going to be on administrative side? Is it going to be helping you doing some of the mock-ups for those of you that are designers? Is it going to be helping you with doing some of the administrative tasks? Is it going to be doing social media? Is it going to be scheduling, contacting vendors, like giving people specific roles? The biggest part about delegation is that it doesn't have to be costly. Like, let's be very clear. Like, you may need someone that you only need 5 hours a week or 5 hours every other week, or it might just be when you need them. You can find really great resources locally or like in your circle of influence. Throughout my 15 years, I've had friends and people that were friends that recommended individuals to me that were just looking for a few extra hundred or a few extra thousand a month. They're not looking for full-time employment because they had full-time employment. Same thing with using platforms like Fiverr and Upwork. You can find people that are completely okay being consultants that can do a great job with you as administrative assistant, where you're giving them 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week to do something that you need them to do. But before you put that person on, I do recommend you creating some videos that they can actually repeat and watch to do things as closely as possible. So using a Loom or a Zoom to be able to do that, or if you just want to put up your camera and record yourself packing boxes or doing a specific task, do that. And the thing is that there's some people that's the best way that they learn. So you don't have to, again, make this overcomplicated. We don't need to write a whole dissertation. We just need to have something that's easy for people to follow so that they're able to do what we need them to do. But if we don't take the time to do that, then it's going to ultimately always make you as the bottleneck and is going to not create a great experience as being a business owner. The biggest lesson to the take away from delegation is that your business should be able to function without you doing it all. And if you're having to do everything, even with a team, because that's the key, if you have a team and you're still having to do everything, chances are there's not enough information to be able to have people do their job well without you, or you just were not the best at selecting people to work with you. And I get it. In the beginning, you're like, my sister's helping me. And eventually, like, I don't need to have my sister working with me. I'd rather pay someone because if there's that friction. But again, you have to know what's best for your company by delegating to the right people, because that is the biggest lesson that you can ever do is hiring the right people, regardless if this is a consultant, someone is working with you part-time, or if it's someone is working with you full-time. You have to be able to understand what type of person you're looking to work with you, knowing exactly what you need for them to do, and having something that's easy for them to follow so they can repeat those tasks too. So the next step is now you have to start putting all this stuff together to actually think about scaling, because scaling systems isn't just about being busy. It's not about a full calendar. Scaling is increasing your profit, increasing your efficiency so that you have the ability to take on a larger workload or capacity inside of your business. And everyone has different goals inside of their business. And to be honest, different people have different visions for scaling. Some people for scaling might be, hey, I just want to do 15 events a year. In fact, I had someone that was on this podcast last year, and her company doesn't go for volume. They just go for quality. And I believe she said they do anywhere between 10 to 15 weddings a year only. So it's not to say, hey, you need to be doing 30 weddings, 40 weddings a year. In fact, that'd probably be pretty chaotic. So it comes down to, what does scaling mean to you and your business and your business goals? So the first thing you want to do when it comes to scaling is to review your pricing. If you know that you do balloons and you're charging $600 for an arch, how much is it costing for your supplies? How much is it costing you to actually do, like, the equipment that you're needing to actually take the design to a location? So if you're using bags and things like that, that's all a part of you actually doing the service. But the second part of it is understanding your operational costs. Do you have to have a studio now? Because I've seen some people that have used storage containers, which I thought was really cool because containers are pretty cheap. They'll go in there to do their actual assembly. Some people just use their house in an area that's considered like a business work area. Some people get actual studios or storefronts or something of that nature, or commercial space, something of that nature, to be able to do it. So what is your rent? What are your utilities? How many subscriptions are you paying for? Like, you have to understand how much it actually costs to run your business. Because if we're selling things at a low price point, but our operating costs are $10,000 a month, and let's not even bring in taxes, you have to know these things, because if you're trying to do this as a passive business, you don't want it to be that you're always working, or you have to do max capacity just to be able to make a living for yourself. So the sooner you can get real honest about how much it actually takes to run your business, the better, because that's really the only way to be a business owner. Because what will really happen is you'll find yourself with no money, and not being able to do the things you're really wanting to do, because operating costs are what they're going to be. Insurance is going to be what it's going to be. Taxes, there's no way out of that. So you need to know that. So once you are clear about how much your operating costs are, understanding what your average client spend is, so how much is your average customer spending with you, then look at what your true capacity is right now. So if it takes, your operating cost might be $1,000 right now, just for your website, your insurance, and like a few other things. But then you are charging $600 for a balloon setup. But out of that, it's costing you $30 for your balloon kit to do that. It comes down to saying, okay, well, I'm walking away with $500 worth of profit per se, roughly. So if we're walking away with $500 profit, roughly, we're not sitting here saying, oh, if I book 2 bookings, then I make the $1,000 I need to make. You can't forget about taxes, and you can't forget to pay yourself. So the clearer you are on how much you're charging and what you need to make, then it will open your eyes to how do you improve your capacity? Does it come down to you possibly needing to have some additional passive income opportunities? Like one of the things I've started to see people do is workshops for the balloon spectrum of it all. I've seen people actually just selling the kits instead of doing these cheap balloon setups. They're like, hey, here, you can buy these kits from me. I can show you how I have a video on how to do this design, and you can just pay me the $50 and you do it yourself, or $100 and you do it yourself, instead of me doing it for $100. So it comes down to, how do you add passive streams on top of what you're able to do and make with your regular services, so that you're able to not only clear your operational costs, you're able to leave profit inside of your business, then pay yourself, because I don't want it to be that you're stealing from your own company without even knowing it, because we'll have money coming in when we're really busy. But if you don't know how much it takes to really run your business, and how much you need to be working towards to have reserves, it's just going to set you up to not be prepared when things happen. And when things happen, they'll happen unexpectedly. I was grateful that when the pandemic happened, I had several months worth of savings in my business, because I wasn't just spending money because things were busy and we had the money coming in. You just need to always be smart as a business owner when it comes to your finances. So when we're scaling, we have to know exactly how much are we charging, how much does it cost to run our business, what are some other ways to bring in revenue, and then what our real capacity is inside of our business, because that is another part of scaling. Because if you currently are at 75% capacity in your calendar, what happens when you try to fill up to 100%? Do you even want 100%? Or do you need to start looking at having someone else working with you, which is going to, of course, increase your operational costs? So if we're now increasing our operational costs, how many more bookings do we need to make or get to make it make sense to hire that person? But the more you can look at your numbers, it will help you truly with being more powerful and making the decisions inside of your business, because capacity is going to be another key indicator when it comes to scaling. So the biggest lesson to remember when it comes to scaling is all about leverage. Leveraging your pricing so that it's going to help you hit your goals, is going to allow for you to create the systems that you're needing so that you're able to handle an increase and hitting those goals. And then it also will allow for you to have the profit that you're wanting inside of your business. And by doing all of those things, it's not just being busy, but it's having clarity on, am I pricing right? Do I have the ability to handle more? And if not, can I handle paying people? And if not, is it now time to hire more people to be able to hit that goal? And also making sure that we're making the kind of profit we need inside of our business at the same time. So I do understand, like, this seems like a lot to take in. Do not allow yourself to be overwhelmed. And if you're listening to this and you're realizing you're still doing too much manually, you're not quite sure what to do next, it's time to get help. I'm offering a free business system assessment where we'll look at what's working inside of your business and what's costing you, and most importantly, how to fix it. I'll make sure to have the link inside of the description and show notes so you can take a look at this opportunity.